Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Top Custom Hearthstone Cards of the Week, the show where we look at some fan-made Hearthstone cards from the r/custom Hearthstone subreddit. Subscribe to know when the next episode is out, and if you could like this season's first episode, it would be greatly appreciated. First up is Lady in Black, 6-mana 5/5 Warlock legendary with the battle cry, cast Demon Fire on every minion in your deck, which deals 2 damage to a minion, or gives it 2/2 if it is a demon. I think casting Demon Fire is a bit more interesting. Obviously, it works well with all the demons in your deck, kind of like getting a double Prince Keleseth buff for all of your demons, but it also means if you have a minion in your deck like Keleseth, they're going to be dealt 2 damage. Now, recommended in the comments of the post, and the type of interaction I'd like to see from this card is the Demon Fire casting actually happens when you draw the card. So you'd play Lady in Black, some cool animation would be around your deck, and then anytime you drew a minion before it got into your hand, either 2 damage would be dealt to it, or it would be given +2/+2 if it is a demon. So let's say you draw a non-demon minion like Keleseth, it just gets burned right away when you draw it, and you don't get to draw another card that turn. Another example would be if you drew something like Gerbashi Berserker, it would take the 2 damage and gain 3 attack, becoming a 5/5. Lady in Black would definitely encourage running demons. I mean, who doesn't want a 1-mana 5/4 Flame Imp? Some Death Rattle minions like Possessed Lackey could be crazy in this type of deck. You can definitely see how this makes a demon deck really powerful, but just like Lady in White, and just like Keleseth, Lady in Black can't be the win condition of this deck. It can complement the deck, and playing it turn 6 can help your chances of winning, but you can't be reliant on drawing a legendary to win your game. For Lady in Black, the 2/2 buff is really powerful, but it's not just 2 drops you're giving up, it's all non-demon minions that don't like being dealt 2 damage, which is most minions. And I think this deck building requirement is probably going to be too great to overcome for Lady in Black to be competitive. It doesn't fit into any current Warlock decks, they run too many important non-demons, and don't really run enough demons for the battlecry to even be worthwhile. I think when a deck of 15 demons is playable without this card, then Lady in Black could actually see play. Next up is Winslow Time Bank, 5-mana 3/4 mage legendary with the battle cry, choose an action in the history bar, undo it. So, for example, if your opponent fireballed a minion of yours last turn, you can select it from the history bar, your opponent gets their fireball back, and your minion is back on the board, ready to attack as though it never happened. But it's important not to get this confused with something like Toki Time Tinker's hero power. You're not going back in time, really it's just any cards affected in a single action in the history bar get reversed. So while undoing buffs is kind of like a worse version of silence, undoing expensive moves like playing Ultimate Infestation or playing some big minion basically means you've taken away your opponent's last turn for just 5 mana. It would definitely be a headache making sure that this card interacts how it's intended. There's different ways to interpret how undoing certain plays should work. Like if your opponent buffs one of their minions, but you undo the part of the history bar where they played that minion, I mean the minion goes back to your opponent's hand, but does the buff just disappear, or does it go back into your opponent's hand? There are a lot of these questions that would still need to be figured out, and that's one of the issues with Winslow, it's that the interaction isn't really innate. Having some sort of interaction with the history bar is a great idea, and because the history bar keeps changing with every action, the timing, or when you actually use this card, is really important to get the most value out of it. It would be really fun to use Winslow to reverse an Ultimate Infestation, or a Deathwing, but it definitely has the possibility of making a really powerful tempo swing. So in my opinion, I'd probably bump this up to 7 mana just to make sure it's a bit more balanced. Maybe some fundamentally simpler version of the card could work a little bit better. The battlecry could just reverse time to a certain point in the history bar and you'd actually go back in time, like Toki. Except with this one, you can go back in time to a point on your opponent's turn as well, or even your last turn. With this one, Winslow should also be destroyed from your deck after you play because it would get annoying if one of the players was just reversing time every turn. Another version of this card could have the battlecry select a card from the history bar and add it to your hand. Not really as cool of a concept as the original card, but it's just a simpler version that could allow the user to get a copy of a powerful card their opponent played, or allow them to play another one of their cards. Regardless, Winslow Time Bank is a great idea for a card, and I would love to see the devs put a card in the game that somehow interacts with the history bar in the future. Next up is Martial Arts Amateur. 3-mana 2/2 neutral with Rush, Battlecry, and it has Immune this turn. Also, you can return this to your hand to upgrade. So this card on its own is decent. 3 mana, deal 2 damage with Rush, you get a 2/2 out on the board, it has Immune, so you're basically guaranteeing you have a 2/2 next turn. But kind of like a minion Spellstone, by simply returning it to your hand, you get Martial Arts Student. This is the same minion as the first, but now it has Wind Fury. And just this simple upgraded version is a pretty strong card. And honestly, it's a pretty easy requirement, especially for Rogue. But if you return this to your hand one more time, and wait until you play all the the cards to the left of it, making it the leftmost card in your hand. Then it upgrades to the Martial Arts Master. 3 mana 2/2 rush, Mega Wind Fury, which allows you to attack 4 times, and immune on your turn. This is all very exciting. First thing to talk about, while the upgraded minions are pretty powerful, it's important to note just how slow this whole process is. The first upgrade can be done easily enough, but you also have to have the bounce back card with you to ensure you get the upgrade. And bouncing back a 3 mana minion into your hand is slow in any deck. You're basically playing 3 mana and then whatever card you're using to bounce back just to deal 2 damage that turn. Like I said before, it probably could work in a rogue deck. Quest is probably the best option, but if you ever want to upgrade this card to Master, you'd also need to play a good amount of cards to the left of it, which is gonna take some time. Even with how slow this card is, I think it would be way too good in Quest Rogue. There's a reason Rogue doesn't have access to any powerful cheap rush minions, because once you complete the quest, just an immune 5/5 with Rush is good. An immune 5/5 with Rush and Wind Fury is nasty, and I don't even want to think about a 5/5 Master. Just to put in perspective how good the first upgraded one is, think about how good Stone Tusk Boar and Young Dragonhawk are when they're 5/5s. Yes, clearly Rush isn't as good as Charge, but also add to the fact that Martial Arts is a decent minion to play when you haven't played the quest yet, and overall I think this card is way too powerful and would probably push Quest Rogue back into a high tier position. Maybe that's alright for some of you, but personally I'd rather have it be the fringe deck it is right now. It's a shame because I think there's some really hilarious combos, like getting a 10/10 that has Mega Wind Fury with Dino Size or Splintergraft, faceless combos, sudden Genesis stuff. The Paladin buffs could be crazy with Wind Fury. I think the card is really slow and clunky enough that it wouldn't be a problem in any other deck besides Quest Rogue. I think it's a really creative design, but if it's a card that brings that deck back up to a high tier, then I don't know if I'd want to see it in a game. Maybe we could remove the immune ability, because to be honest, that is kind of cheese for 3 mana 2/2 rush with immune. Like that's kind of crazy. So maybe get rid of immune across the board, and that may be able to balance it, but probably the easiest solution is to just get rid of the quest. Next up is Dreadful Deal, a simple but cheeky Warlock spell, 1 mana, draw 2 cards. When both are played, deal 30 damage to your hero. It's a form of draw, and you get to choose between the 2 cards which one you want to play, but from then on out you'll probably have a dead card in your hand for the rest of the game. I mean, there are a few ways around it. First is discarding. You can't go through a custom cards video without discussing discard Warlock, and with Dreadful Deed, if you're going to have a card in your hand you can't play, you might as well discard it. Simple as that. There's also just Handlock, where having a lot of cards in your hand, even when you can't play one, still helps you out. If there are ever any more cards printed that make your hero immune, like the wild ones, then you wouldn't take the 30 damage. Dreadful Deal is a really great concept for Warlock, and having to remember you cannot play one of the cards you're holding is really fun. It's a great card, great Warlock flavor, and I'd love if a competitive deck played it, because every once in a while, I bet a Warlock would accidentally kill themselves. But last up is Totem Carving, 1 mana shaman spell that adapts a totem, and all future copies of it gain that adapt. You can play this on any totem minion, but probably to get the most value over the game, you'll want to select one of the 4 basic totems. In any old shaman deck this might be okay, but in a Baku deck, where the upgraded hero power lets you choose which totem you summon, buffing a totem with poison, wind fury, or any stats gives your upgraded hero power the ability to summon your specifically buffed totems. This means it's a 2 mana hero power, summon a 3/2 taunt, 0/5 healing totem, spell damage totem with divine shield, and yes, sure, even a 2/2 totem if you want. And I didn't even talk about casting 2 of these spells on 1 totem. On top of this, the upgraded hero power allows you to summon as many of these same totems as you want. Just imagine 2 mana 3/5 taunt, that is insane. Going back to Baku, I really like the concept of the upgraded shaman hero power. It takes away these stupid RNG from trying to get the totem you want out on board, but sacrificing even cards in your deck just isn't worth the hero power upgrade at the moment. So I think if Totem Carving was in the game, it would actually be worth looking into a Baku totem deck. Now, with this all said, being able to use your hero power to spawn 3/5s is a little bit too much. You could change it so the adapt only lasts for the next 5 totems you summon over the game. Whichever totem you choose, it has the adapt that you applied to the first one. This sort of takes away the whole advantage of using the upgraded Baku hero power, so maybe a different change could be just instead of adapting, you give that certain totem +1/+1 or just divine shield, some effect that still makes the card powerful but not a ridiculous hero power. Totem Carving is a cool idea on how to buff up your totems and your upgraded hero power. It's just a tad bit too powerful, and using it in a non-Baku deck might actually increase the impact of RNG with just the regular shaman hero power. but I think the right value balance, where it's encouraged in Baku decks and less encouraged in non-Baku decks, could make this card enjoyable. Well, that is all for this week. Summer is coming soon, which means I'll have more time to make these videos, and hopefully I'll be able to do these weekly once again. Leaving a like is always appreciated. I'll be sure to showcase some of the fan submissions next episode. I just ran out of time this one. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, ta-ta.
That's nice.